Just a warning, this is an adult conversation between adults, so if you have little ears in the vicinity, you might want to grab some headphones. Hi, I'm Mia Freedman, and welcome to No Filter. Have you ever had to apologise for taking up space? Just, for existing? Have you ever been in a relationship with someone who was ashamed to be seen with you in public? Have you ever felt like a failure just because of how you look? More specifically, because of how much you weigh? American writer, feminist, and self-described fat activist Lindy West has, plenty of times. But as soon as she started writing about her experiences, all that changed.
Since I've started writing about this, I hear from other women all the time about how my work has helped them, and you start to feel like you're a part of a big community and you're actually making a difference in the world.
I've been wanting to interview Lindy for over a year for No Filter. After reading her columns on Jezebel and then The Guardian, I fell a little bit in love. And by the time I found out she'd released her memoir, Shrill, and actually bought the audiobook, and when I was on a trip in New York, I had her in my ears reading it out loud to me, and I fell head over heels. She's funny. She's really, really funny. She actually used to be a comedian, but when she dared to write about the culture of sort of rape jokes in comedy and how that wasn't funny, she experienced her first social media pylon and her first encounter with trolls in a serious way, and she doesn't do comedy anymore, but her writing is still really, really funny. Anyway, she was in Australia at the start of March, so we invited her into Mamamia, and we decided, instead of her and I being locked away in the podcast studio, which is where we usually do these No Filter interviews, we thought we'd take it out onto the floor and do a live podcast in front of the Mamamia team. So this is going to be a little bit noisier than your usual No Filter interview. You'll hear people laughing and gasping and, basically loving. We spoke about lots of things. We spoke about why she chose to be a fat bride. We talked about buying a wedding dress, why she didn't diet, her thoughts on Trump, and also how she recovered from having a guy, a relationship with a guy who didn't want to be seen with her in public. Honestly, some people are just the pits. Unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, some of the audio is not recorded. So we start the interview, but only a little bit, so don't worry. We start the interview with me asking Lindy about being a fat bride. Here's Lindy West.
Even people who are size 10 or size 8 lose their minds before their wedding.
Yeah.
Were you tempted? Did you have to fight that trope of being a skinny bride?
A little bit. I mean, I don't know. It was so far into my journey that I was like, I don't think it barely registered. I mean, there might have been a moment where I was like, I guess I could do bridal boot camp, and what if I did? And then I was like, I think my reaction was, why would that be better? Why would I want to look like I've looked like this for so long? Why would I want to look like a completely different person on my wedding day? And then, how many people do you know who did that, who sort of starved themselves for a year to get to a certain size for their wedding, and then they spend the rest of their life being like, ugh, look how thin I was in my wedding photos.
Yeah,
and then my wedding photos make me feel miserable. Like, I just wanted to look like myself in my wedding photos and spend the year before my wedding like having a great time,
Not
traveling.
being hangry.
I don't know. And I wanted to make that political statement because I know how much pressure there is. I mean, as soon as you get engaged, Facebook knows, and it starts sending you...
Really? The algorithm kicks in?
Yeah, and it starts sending you weight loss ads and, every different kind of beauty treatment that you have to be this sort of perfect, thin, hairless thing on your wedding day. And that's creepy, right?
What was it like getting a dress?
Oh, it was great. I think my mom was sad that we didn't do the... do you have Say Yes to the Dress here?
Yeah.
Okay. So that we didn't do the whole Say Yes to the Dress thing. But I was like, that seems like my worst nightmare. Flashbacks of going shopping as a teenager and having nothing fit me and being sweaty and miserable and trying to stuff myself into a sausage casing. So I was like, I don't want to do that. So I have a good friend who's a really, really amazing designer and artist named Mark Mitchell, and he and I collaborated on this dress. I had an idea. I had a picture of a similar dress that I'm blanking on what it was, but it was some couture dress, and he made this adaptation of it, which is like a mermaid dress in a sort of like blondish tulle, just covered in silk flowers that he made by hand that are totally gorgeous. And it broke a lot of rules, a lot of like fat chick fashion rules. It was strapless. I had bare arms. It's totally figure hugging. It's a mermaid dress. It's not like...
You looked so comfortable in it though.
Yeah. It was...
Brides so often don't.
I felt, it was... I don't want to say comfortable physically because gowns are not comfortable ever, but for a beautiful, magical gown, it was very comfortable.
And the look on your husband's face was beautiful too.
Oh, thanks.
You wrote so beautifully about your relationship with him, and you also talked about the assumption that, you guys have to deal with that, say he's your housemate.
Oh my God, all the time. All the time.
How could a hot guy want to have sex with a fat chick?
Yeah, there's this attitude that something's gone wrong, like he's been duped.
Something's broken in the universe.
Yeah, something's broken in the universe. And I get this vibe that, sometimes women are hitting on him as though he would be so relieved to be able to move on to another option and get someone that's his sort of number on the rating scale or whatever that matches him. As though it's impossible for people to just actually like each other. Or the other assumption is that he has like a fetish, and which is also insulting. No, we just are in love. We just like each other. It's fine.
It's really simple.
But
Does
everywhere we
happen?
go. Yeah, people every restaurant, unless it's a place where we're regulars, they ask if we want separate checks. It's just unfathomable to people that we could be married. It's so strange, but. It's great. It feels like I really relish those opportunities to make a political statement while doing very little. Just going out, hanging out with my husband.
Being with a guy that you love.
Yeah.
What was it like dating before him?
It was garbage. Before him, I sort of coincidentally met my husband right in this moment when, or maybe not coincidentally, but right when I was really shedding all of these old assumptions and habits and insecurities that I had about my body, where I was in the process of learning about the fat positive community and reading fat fashion blogs. And
because you sort of did a bit of a boot camp, didn't you, of acceptance for yourself?
It felt like it. It felt like it was this very, very slow process, but then also all at once. And so I just got fed up with waiting to have the life that I wanted, because I thought that was contingent on having a certain body. I thought that I had to be thin in order to be confident and assertive and really start living. So I got fed up, stopped doing that. I was in a bad relationship with a guy who was embarrassed to be seen with me in public, and yet I dated him for 2 years, in secret, basically.
How did that manifest?
It was, we were together all the time and we went out all the time, but it was like very, he just would act very platonic with me in public, so that
he would be happy with the 2 checks.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Happy for you to believe.
Absolutely.
That we're not together.
Yeah, exactly. And he told me explicitly when one time I really, really pressed him on it, about why we never hung out with his friends, and it was because he was embarrassed. And I was like, I am so much cooler than you and your friends.
But was that the end of it in that moment? You're going to say
no,
aren't you?
No, because I wasn't there yet, and I still was under the impression that this was the best I could do. That I wasn't entitled to ask for anything or to demand respect, basic respect and humanity. I was like, well, my options are limited. This is okay. He's not a bad guy. He was not, aside from that thing, he was not mean to me.
Do you mean aside from being an asshole?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But that's coming from external pressures. I understand that men grow up in this sort of toxic system too, and women are treated as a status symbol for men to show off to other men. And if you're an insecure man, that's as difficult to buck off as our internalized insecurities and inferiority complex.
So how do you not internalize all of that? How do you get through that to the place you are now?
I mean, I think once you recognize that something is a system and not an objective truth, but a system that's been imposed upon you, you start seeing it everywhere. And it becomes, and particularly for me, since I've started writing about this, I hear from other women all the time about how my work has helped them, and you start to feel like you're part of a big community and you're actually making a difference in the world. Feeling like you're making a difference in the world is super addictive.
Yeah, right.
You know,
that's why people tweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the idiots.
Yeah,
especially the idiots.
Right, I know, and I think feeling like they're not making a difference in the world is what a lot of Twitter is frustrated about, because people feel very impotent and unheard. But
so you are making a difference in the world.
Well,
I mean, what you're doing and the way you're talking. No, you absolutely are. How much pressure is there then? Like, so I've got a very good friend who was very overweight and had gastric banding and felt sick about it. Like, felt like she was betrayed the people that, she's a writer and she had a following. And I know someone else who's a fashion blogger and was losing weight and felt also that she was betraying.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're almost kind of like held hostage to the empowerment you've created? I know it's a weird thing to say.
No, it's not weird. I think about that a lot because my weight does fluctuate. It goes up and down. Sometimes I'm more active than other times, and sometimes life is really complicated, and who knows why weight fluctuates. And sometimes I do worry, like, if it's going down, I'm like, oh man, if this goes down really far, if this keeps going down, this could actually impact the level of trust that people have in me, because there really there's a difference between there's a difference between having a fat friend and having a thin friend. It's different. And
how is it different?
I mean, because it's just about shared experience. It's just the same as, like, it's different having female friends as a woman than having male friends.
Right, yeah.
And so, I'm in a lot of private communities of fat women where we talk about really intense struggles. And a lot of people there's a lot of mistrust for formerly fat people who lose a lot of weight and then become this sort of evangelist for, you can change your life and make your body better. And, those are often the people who are the most cruel and are insisting that fat people are just full of excuses and are lazy and are just...
and I did it. You can too.
Exactly. But as though everyone's life isn't completely different, and everyone isn't fat for different reasons. There's a vast... And as though body diversity isn't normal. There have always been a range of body sizes and body types. So I do worry about that. But I also think that if you believe in bodily autonomy, which I do, it's not my business what other people do with their bodies. Even if people do want to engage in deliberate weight loss, there are a lot of people who are fat to a degree that it really negatively impacts their life, and they're very unhappy. Because I know people who really struggle. It's hard to not be able to sit in a chair. It's hard to not be able to fly. It's hard to not be able to walk. And so when we make this hard line rule that, deliberate weight loss is a betrayal, you're really kind of erasing people who do very genuinely struggle with ability issues. And my stance is, as long as people don't feel coerced because of these really toxic social pressures to conform to an aesthetic idea, you should absolutely do whatever you want with your body. I just don't want people to feel coerced. I don't want
people... It's hard though, isn't it? It's like Botox. It's like, yep, I'm doing it because it's my choice and I'm doing it as a feminist for me. And it's like, yeah, but in what context?
Right, and there's a certain amount of lying to yourself that goes into it. And right now, I really have gotten like I have a personal trainer who's great, and I've really gotten into working out, and I have to question myself all the time, like, do I actually like this? And I've gone through phases before where I had a trainer and it was really, really fun, and like working out's horrible, but then also it feels great after, and like you get kind of addicted to that. But I am constantly questioning myself, like, do I genuinely like this, or am I pretending to like it because really I'm sort of falling back into old habits of feeling like I need to make my body as small as possible, or at least sort of signal that I'm the good kind of fat person who exercises. So I don't know, these are just, I guess my answer is that it's a really, really complicated, vast, very fraught topic. And the best I can do is support people in their decisions and what's best for them, and trust people to know their bodies and know their own lives.
What's the difference between a good fat person and have a sip?
Okay.
I'll ask a long question.
Okay.
What's the difference between a good fat person and a bad fat person?
Well, we have the first phase of body positivity was, like, it used to just be like, oh yeah, all fat people are disgusting and horrible and a drain on the system, and fat people are gross, ha ha ha. And then there was this...
They were good times.
Yeah, it was great. And then there was this phase where people were like, well, as long as they're trying. Like, as long as they're trying to lose weight, that's fine. And we should not abuse them and, like, make fun of them. And there's this idea of being a good fat person who's on a diet and who's really sorry about their body, really sorry for taking up space, really sorry for sitting next to you on the plane, so sorry, oh my God, so sorry all the time. And I'm trying to exercise, I'm working on it, I'm down 5 pounds, I promise I'm not gonna be like this forever. I promise this is temporary. And what I would like to, my goal, in my activism and my writing, is to get to a point where no one has to apologize for existing and taking up space and having the body that they have. It's very, very cruel to force people to live in a state of constant apology. And it's it's not an active state, it's a passive state, you know what I mean? How can you possibly be driving your life if you're just...
On the way. So it's the idea that a good fat person is on their way to being thin.
Right, is just temporarily fat because they sort of are failing at being thin. Like, there's this idea, and this persists, that every single person is a thin person, and then some of us have failed to a degree more egregious than others. And that was the moment in my 20s when I finally reckoned with the idea that I could be fat forever. Because when I was younger, that was the most terrifying thought to me. I had to believe that this was temporary, because it not only was I taught that it was bad and that I was hideous and no one would ever love me, it also, it tangibly affected my life. Fat people face housing discrimination and, maybe housing discrimination, but employment discrimination, medical discrimination. There's documented bias from doctors against fat people, and it's a hard road. And so when I was afraid to even think, like, what if I'm fat forever? And then at a certain point, like I said, I started to get really frustrated, and I thought, okay, what if I am? What do I do then? Is this the life that I want? A life of apology and misery forever? No, it's not. And I don't think anyone should be trapped in that situation.
Of course, everyone wants to know how you did that. How you went from that beautiful chapter in your book about how to overcome shyness.
Oh, yeah.
Which is that great list of all the mortifying things that have ever happened to you.
Yeah.
To now being a loud woman shouting into a megaphone. Yeah. Which doesn't seem like you. You're kind of quite...
I know.
I mean, I know book covers, but you're quite...
Yeah, it's very literal.
Yeah, it is literal. Book covers always are quite literal, I find.
Yeah, I don't think that I'm particularly loud, except maybe at the bar.
But does that just mean a woman with an opinion?
Yeah, it's really more of a figurative shrillness, a figurative loudness, a matter of saying your opinion and demanding respect and demanding space and representation, or not, or being the sort of compliant, pretty little decoration that we're supposed to be, that we're taught that we're supposed to be. So, yeah, I don't know how I got here.
it's interesting what you say though about.
I guess that's what the whole book is.
That's what is how you got here.
Yeah.
Coming up, Lindy opens up about talking to a man who trolled her on Twitter in the worst way imaginable. But first, a message from our sponsors.
On the subject of loud, I want to talk to you about Shout Your Abortion.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about bodily autonomy before in the realm of whatever size your body should be. But how did Shout Your Abortion come about?
Yeah, I had never really written much about abortion. I didn't, I'm not sure why. I guess that was part of how it came about, is that I was talking to a friend of mine named Amelia Bono, who's wonderful, sort of brilliant firecracker of a person. And we realized that we had both had abortions and had never talked about it. Even though neither of us was ashamed. We both live in Seattle, which is a very progressive place, a very safe place to talk about things like abortion and liberal families. There was no risk, and we didn't really believe in the anti-abortion stigma, and yet we were caving to it, and we were living as though we did believe in it. And this is someone that I share really personal things with all the time. So we were like, why have we never talked about this? And I started to talk to some other friends and realized that many of us had never talked about it. And it was this moment of this sort of epiphany, that if we're feeling this pressure to not talk about abortion, what are women in, conservative areas and rural areas and places where,
Or religious communities.
Communities, people who are living with not just stigma but danger and are getting, all of us, when we're afraid to talk about our experiences, or when we're caving to the stigma, are leaving the issue of abortion entirely in the hands of anti-abortion activists. Those are the only people who really talk about it openly. And so they get to define it however they want. And the way they define it is,
baby killers.
Yeah, sort of irresponsible sluts murdering babies. So
that's us.
Yeah, exactly. And the rest of us, because there's this sort of issue of propriety where like, oh, well, we just don't talk about it.
Oh, it's just a personal matter.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That actually becomes a form of, that enables oppression very, very quickly and very directly.
So do you think it's like we've all internalized shame about it? I find that when I got into my 40s, friends start opening up about it. I don't know why, but I find that people become, as they get older, feel less ashamed or less...
Well, and what it means is when we don't talk about it, especially in public, it means that the only ones that you hear about are these sort of outliers where it's like, the mother was going to die. That's why we have to
really
have
extreme cases.
These really extreme cases, and you especially don't hear about abortions like mine, where I was in that bad relationship with the guy who wouldn't be seen with me in public, and I was like, well, I don't really want to know you for the rest of my life. I'd have to not be connected to you. And also, I was like 25 or something, and it's just not the time. And so I went and had an abortion, and it was very, very simple, and it was not painful, and it was not traumatic, and I was relieved, and it was done. I mean, you don't hear those narratives.
Yeah, I had the exact same abortion.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, great is, I don't want to say great, I shouldn't say great.
No, but
it was.
Not life-defining. It's like, having it wasn't life-defining, not having it would have been life-defining.
Exactly, and the fact is that it is a normal, common, necessary medical procedure that 1 in 3 women or people with uteruses will have by the time they're 45. And so the fact is that all of these anti-abortion people living in religious communities who insist that they would never have an abortion, and anyone who has had an abortion is a murderer, sorry, people who have had abortions, they just haven't told you. And someday you may need this life-saving, life-saving sometimes literally and always figuratively, the ability to steer and define your own life is what life is.
And if the legislators knew how many women they knew who had abortions, including no doubt their own wives and daughters and sisters and mothers.
And mistresses that they paid for, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was all out in the open, it becomes much more difficult to...
demonize it.
Demonize it. And And what I've found since starting Shout Your Abortion, which was basically just a hashtag where women around the world were just sharing their abortion stories, is that there are a lot of people, a great number of people, especially men, who've never really had to think about it before, and so all they absorb are these sort of vague ideas like, it's a complicated debate. I'm a little uncomfortable with it. Of course, I believe it should be legal, but I don't. I'm a little. And that's because all they hear are, they've been battered with this idea of baby killers, and so they feel like it must sort of be baby killing, Like I know progressive men who've really never actually looked into what abortion means and why it's important, and they just have these vague notions where they know they know that the right thing to say is that they support abortion rights, but they don't really understand why, and they. It's this idea of safe, legal, and rare.
Yeah, I used to think that was the right thing to say,
right.
And I've been schooled on that quite recently, that it should be, what's the better line? I've forgotten something about a woman knows or a woman chooses or something like that.
That sounds like a good line.
Yeah.
A woman knows. Or what I say in the book is that just to put any sort of number on it.
Yeah.
Like all I want is for there to be the exact number of abortions as pregnant people who want
to have abortions.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be extra abortions, And I mean, I say that in a funny tone, but we also have.
It's true though.
I mean, we also have issues in America with, there, and I assume here, I believe here, where there are issues of women of color who have been forcibly sterilized. Where it's reproductive health is so much bigger than just I live in a city and I have health insurance and I don't want to be pregnant. I'm going to go have an abortion. It's a deeply entrenched, very, very historically traumatic and important and complicated issue that deserves more attention and more respect than we give it.
I imagine with Shout Your Abortion, the trolls loved that, did they? How'd that go?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was.
You got some women trolling you too, yeah?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of anti-choice women because like I said, we're all raised in the same broken system, and it was a different strain of troll than my usual.
It's me here. It was around this time that the audio dropped out. I was actually sitting on the couch and I could see everyone sort of scurrying, and I was trying to stay focused and trying to maintain eye contact and keep asking questions, and it was really hot under the lights because we were doing a Facebook Live as well. And anyway, so that was a small drama, but I'm kind of getting used to that. It happened with the PM and Lindy. So when Lindy says she's not my usual type of troll, she's referring to the fact that she gets a lot of crap from men. Most of her trolls are men, about her weight, about her beliefs, about her opinions, about her feminism, what she stands for. But in 2013, after appearing on a talk show to discuss rape, Lindy was contacted by someone who was unbelievably pretending to be her dead father. She wrote on Jezebel about her experiences, and then she received this email from this guy. And he'd actually set up a Twitter account in the name of her recently deceased father. And it was, I think, the name Paul West, and the address was something like 6 feet under in Chicago or wherever it was that he lived. And it says, 2 daughters, one of which is an embarrassment to me, or something like that. And she said it was the worst thing that had ever happened to her, and she wrote about it really movingly. So then she, out of the blue, received this email, and it said, "Hey Lindy, I don't know why or even when I started trolling you. It wasn't because of your stance on rape jokes. I don't find them funny either. I think my anger towards you stems from your happiness with your own being. It offended me because it served to highlight my unhappiness with my own self. I've emailed you through 2 other Gmail accounts just to send you idiotic insults. I apologise for that. I created the Paul West Dunzo at gmail.com account and Twitter account. I have deleted both. I can't say sorry enough. It was the lowest thing I had ever done. When you included it in your latest Jezebel article, it finally hit me. There is a living, breathing human being who's reading this shit. I'm attacking someone who has never harmed me in any way and for no reason whatsoever. I'm done being a troll. Again, I apologise. I made a donation in memory to your dad. I wish you the best. Whew, imagine receiving that. I've never heard of that happening, really. I've never heard of a troll contacting someone. And what happened next is also unusual. It's not something that many people would do. Lindy actually spoke to her troll. She called her troll on the phone. And that is where we pick up our conversation.
But I think what you say about, the troll word being this cute little thing, and you think that, or else you just think that they're monsters and whatever. But they're actually usually a guy with the kid often. I've been horrified by looking at the avatars of some of my trolls, and it'll be like some guy with his beaming little girl, and I'll just be like, you just called me a filthy whore. Like, really? And you've got a little girl?
I know the anti-abortion trolls, because those are often not anonymous, because they're just like, I'm a pastor in a small town, and they have like a little girl, and I'm like, you would let your child die, or if she becomes one of the 1 in 3 women who have an abortion, you think she should be put in prison for murder? And they're always like,
she won't do that.
She won't do that. Or they just sort of scamper off. I don't know. Refuse to answer. But I feel like I didn't finish the troll story. Basically,
you spoke to him on air for This American Life.
Yeah, he apologized. I wrote him back, and then we did an interview. And it was it was pretty surprising.
I started thinking about you, because I know you had read it. And I'm thinking, how would she feel? And the next day, I wrote you.
Yeah.
I truly am sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, have you lost anyone? Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
I can. I can. I don't know what else to say except that I'm sorry.
You know?
Have you stayed in touch?
He emails me once in a while.
Really?
Actually, I haven't.
I was being facetious. I didn't think that you would have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that. I would have liked our relationship to be closed. You know what I mean? So I haven't written him back because I don't. Not that I'm not scared of him. I actually think he's a nice guy. I think he was going through a hard time and has now done a lot of work on himself.
That's very generous of you.
I know. Well, I mean, what's the point of?
But you're not
what are
looking
we
for a
asking
new friend.
for? But I'm not looking for a new friend. I don't want to set that precedent. You know, I don't have the time to, as much as I would love to, even be friends with the really nice people who write to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but he sort of very sweetly sent me, for a couple years, he would send me little updates about what was going on in his life. He became a teacher. He sent me a picture of his first kindergarten class that he had taught. It was really sweet.
I guess that's nice.
I think that this experience was a turning point for him.
Yeah, clearly.
You know, in the way that it was kind of a turning point for me in a lot of ways.
But you stayed on Twitter until recently.
Yeah.
Are you still there?
No.
The headline on your piece was just so great. You said, I'm leaving Twitter because it's become a place for...
Oh, I said...
tyrants?
Trolls, dictators, and...
Presidents?
Robots.
On robots.
Yeah.
Yeah. It amazed me that you stayed as long as you did.
Yeah, me too.
It's kind of like self-harm.
I know. No, you know, and I didn't even leave because of the trolling. I could not be more accustomed to that. But I mean, indirectly, you know, that was involved. Like, I realized that I was spending 5 hours a day arguing with, 14-year-old boys about politics. And it's like, this is so pointless. Why am I doing this? It's making me anxious, and it's wasting my time. And I could be using that time to make things that are important to me. And sort of more urgently, I just, the way that Donald Trump uses Twitter is legitimately scary to me. And I was sort of watching him tweet and like harass and taunt North Korea on Twitter. And I was like,
I can't be part of this.
I can't be part of this. Yeah, I just felt weirdly complicit, like just being in the same pool, you know?
Cool.
Not that means, and I don't think other people should quit. I think people should do exactly what they want. I would go back if they banned Donald Trump.
Yeah, right.
Which they'll never do.
In our dreams.
But I just needed to get to move away from it. It was not a healthy space for me anymore.
And it was diverting you from your actual work, which is kind of what they were trying to do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, wasting your time.
Right. And so for a long time I was like, I will never let them win. They're trying to drive me away. I will never leave. And then after the election, I was like, why am I playing their game at all, you know? So what if they're trying to make me leave? So now, by extension, they're making me stay. Like, why should I let them make me do anything?
They're holding me hostage in a way.
Exactly. And I was like, okay, what do I actually want? And what I wanted was to just not be there.
Not be there.
So, do the Real Housewives of Sydney really hate each other?
The letter X in her name, for me, is a target. Bang.
How has Big Little Lies changed the storyline from the book?
They've taken away a child from Reese Witherspoon. There was a little boy, I think, so he's not there.
And how would a Walking Dead cast member survive a zombie apocalypse for real?
So obviously I'd just head for Woodbury, you know, that's where I think the governor would have been a really great person to be with.
The Binge. It's the show that goes behind the screens. Join me, Laura Brodnick.
And me, Tiffany Dunk.
For the show about everything that's on the box.
The Binge, smart TV talk. Subscribe in iTunes or the Mamamia podcast app.
I want to do a lightning round and ask you about a few different people. You ready?
Okay. What do you, like just my opinion on people?
Yeah, and I'm not looking for you to trash them, except unless you really want to. Donald Trump. But yeah, just your view on some different sort of pop culture figures. Ivanka.
Ugh. Am I allowed to swear?
Very much so.
Ivanka. You, man. Ivanka's a turncoat who's throwing us all under the bus, and I hate her. Ivanka is a very, very powerful weapon that Donald Trump has in his arsenal. She makes him seem normal, and she basically sells him to women, and it's disgusting. And I can't believe anyone falls for it. And I have no idea what's going on in her brain because I don't think she's stupid. So I guess she must just be evil. Which is bizarre because I don't really believe that exists. You know?
What about the people that say we want as many semi-sane people in his orbit and in his ear as possible? And if apparently he says, she always tries to convince me to do the right thing because his default is to do the wrong thing naturally.
Yeah, well, maybe if she was so sane and so, attached to doing the right thing, she should have done the right thing 4 years ago or, even 6 months ago and convince him not to try to be president, Yeah. But sure, yes, now that we're in this sort of triage situation, I suppose I'm glad that she's in there. Although everything is on fire and people are dying. So how much of an effect is she actually having? I mean, that seems like spin to me. She must be, to a certain extent, totally on board with this because obviously she is.
She's enabling him.
She's been campaigning for her father for years. So, this idea that she's some sort of stabilizing force. Oh, really? Because, brown people are being murdered in the name of Donald Trump. And families are being, literally, there were 2 Indian men were shot in Kansas, I think, or somewhere in the middle of the country, by a guy who
said, "Get out of my country.
Get out of my country." That is obviously a direct result of this administration and their rhetoric. And then on a policy level, families are being torn apart. My husband, who's half Nigerian, but was born in America, raised in America, he's an American citizen, he was detained trying to get on a flight the other day and interrogated. And they, asked him, like, where are you from and where are you going and why are you going there and who are you? And, people's lives are already being destroyed deliberately. So how much gratitude am I supposed to have for Ivanka tempering her father's horrible ideas? What on earth was he proposing before Ivanka if she's supposedly toned this down? I mean, it's just, I don't know.
What about Hillary?
Oh, Hillary.
I know, that's how I feel every time I think about her.
I know. Obviously you have to give the caveat that no, Hillary was not a perfect person. Hillary was a career politician who has, of course, in her career said and done many things with which I disagree. Hillary would have been a very, very good president, and I am so sorry that she had to go through. I mean, I can't imagine how traumatic that was. It was traumatic to watch as a woman.
Where were you on election night?
I was just having dinner with my husband in our neighborhood, and it was when he looked at me suddenly and was like, something's going wrong. I just collapsed because it's so viscerally terrifying, and the standards to which Hillary was held, and just the torture inflicted on her by Republicans and the media and many liberals. It was just inhumane. I just can't. It was horrible to watch. And that's not to say that she shouldn't. She should be exempt from criticism.
No, but it was.
I would have loved to be there on the front lines, criticizing President Hillary and making sure that she, served the progressive agenda that she put forth. Her platform was incredibly progressive, and it would have been, if she actually came through, it would have been amazing.
I feel like he's triggering for everybody, but for anyone who's been bullied, there's something about him that's particularly gives you a visceral reaction, the way he name calls people and taunts people, the things he said about fat people in one of the debates.
Could also be lots of other people. It also could be somebody sitting on their bed that weighs 400 pounds, okay?
Where it was like... he's just awful.
Yeah, he's just awful.
Okay, let's talk about someone who's not awful.
I was going to say that on that note, he was also, one of his main bases of support are the same men who have been harassing me on Twitter for years, like literally the same men. They went from just being sort of anti-feminist trolls who I had been familiar with for years, and suddenly they're the Donald Trump brigade. So it literally
they've got MAGA hats on.
Yeah, and it literally was like my personal specific tormentors suddenly
had a champion
who then became president. Like, it's honestly, I've been personally, targeted and harassed by Breitbart. Suddenly Breitbart is running the country. This is right-wing blog.
Yeah, we know.
And there were, things have calmed down now, but in the first days after the election, I was like, am I going to be like disappeared by the White House? And that was a little bit over the top, but
you weren't the only one.
Genuinely frightening. Yeah,
and it's like, are my email account's going to be hacked? Like, what's going to happen? Am I going to be silenced in that way? Because it'll only take a couple of journalists for that to happen to, that have targeted Trump.
Yeah, and that seems
until
absolutely,
other journalists just will not want to risk that.
It seems totally, absolutely on the agenda. Yeah. Any day now we're going to get to that phase of the Trump rollout.
Lena Dunham.
So Lena Dunham has been very, very good to me. She has always been really supportive. Again, it's kind of like with Hillary, you have to give this caveat that, Lena Dunham is a human being.
It's annoying though, isn't it?
I really want to, there are a lot of women of color that I'm very close with who have very strong feelings about Lena Dunham, and I want to honor those feelings. Yeah, and she does say tone-deaf things about race. She makes big mistakes. If you look at girls, especially now, years after it began, I just had this moment the other day at the airport where all 4 stars were on the cover of Glamour or something, and it did strike me anew how kind of bizarre and egregious it is to make a television show with 4 female leads and make all of them white and all kind of variations on the same woman, which is her experience, and I think Girls gets really unfairly maligned, and there's actually a lot of really brilliant stuff on that show. The way that she uses her body is absolutely revolutionary. I don't think she gets enough credit for that. But that was a misstep.
Yeah.
Like, my God, to have the opportunity to make a television show and not use it as a tool for representation, is bizarre to me. But she's also reckoned with that. I think she's talked about it a lot. She's apologized and I think tried to adjust her show and make sure that, I think there are a lot of people who make shows only about white people, who and this is, men, men often make shows only about white people, are never questioned on it, never apologize for it, or even think critically about it at all. So to Lena Dunham's credit, she is permeable, she listens, I believe, and I've...
Permeable is a great word.
Yeah, you know, I think that she wants to do a good job.
Yeah.
So it's complicated, you know, she's a human being. And I think that, again, she's certainly not above criticism, and there have been many valid criticisms of her work, and there have also been many, you know, totally invalid criticisms. Like the shit about her book and her sister was just out of hand, and really, I thought really actually abusive.
I just wanted to finish up by asking you about being a stepmother.
Oh, it's wonderful.
How old are your kids?
They are 13 and 15, two girls.
Two girls. Okay, so the next generation of feminists. What's that like? Do you feel a big responsibility?
I do, yeah, but luckily they're really easy. They're very...
Wait, teenage girls that are really easy?
I know, it's amazing.
How does that happen?
I don't know. My husband's a really good dad. They have a really strong family. Their mom is great, and they're just, I don't know. Maybe they're just naturally special.
How long have you known them for?
Since they were 7 and 9.
What's it like becoming an instant mum in that way? I mean, I suppose you weren't straight away a stepmom. You were kind of a girlfend, and then you got to know them a little bit more.
If they were difficult, it might have been difficult, but it's just been so smooth, and they're so funny and smart and sort of instinctively political and cool, and it's just been a joy and very easy from the beginning. You know, like they text me gossip from school, and they listen to me, which is very nice of them.
Wow, that must be a stepmother thing.
Or they at least pretend to listen to me. They might be rolling their eyes.
Do you want to have kids of your own?
Potentially, yeah. We've been talking about it. It's hard. You know, my husband had his older daughter when he was 19.
Yeah.
And so we're the youngest parents at the...
Really?
I don't know, but when we go to school events, it always feels like, you know, like sometimes... I shouldn't say this, but whatever. Sometimes our older daughter's friends will be like, "Your dad's hot," and we're like, "Oh God." They don't say it to us, but they say it to her, and then she comes to us and is like,
"She must just love hearing that."
Oh my
It's
God!
What every teenage girl wants to hear and think about.
I know. So that's kind of interesting, but you know, so he's been a dad since he was a kid, and so we're talking about having a baby, but he's kind of like, "Hey,
I just would quite like to be on the other side of that."
Right, because you know they just became, you know, the younger one's 13 now. They're both a little bit self-sufficient, and we have a little bit less to do. And he's kind of like, "Oh, do we want a baby right now and just jump right back into it for another 18 years?" But I don't know, man. I'm 35. Come on.
You're 35.
Well, 34 right now. I turned 35 on March 9th in, I guess, 1 week.
just a few days.
Yeah. So I'm basically 35.
And what's the best place to find you now that you're not on Twitter? You write for The Guardian.
I write for The Guardian.
You've got Shrill that's out now.
Yes.
More books? Pressure.
No, yeah, that's on my list. I'm working on my next proposal. I'm working on a TV show. Shrill got options, so we're pitching a TV show.
Fantastic.
Which is very different from having a TV show, but we're in the early stages of figuring out what that might look like. And I have a public Facebook, so I sort of moved my Twitter presence over to Facebook, which is a little bit harder to find. It's harder to navigate. But please find my author page on Facebook, because I am actually on there, you know, and I interact with people and stuff. And
it's
Instagram
nice.
is my favorite.
Instagram. I love your
There's
Insta.
no trolls on Instagram. I mean, there are, but I don't get them. They haven't found me yet. So it's like very peaceful there.
Well, I even found myself, I got off Twitter for the same reason. I would go to Twitter when I was angry. And I think that's when everyone goes to Twitter. Like you go to be angry and you get angry back.
That's interesting.
And Instagram's not.
Yeah,
It
Instagram's
really
just
and
like...
you can make it whatever you want it to be.
I know. I love it. Like, look, here's my outfit. Look, here's my sandwich.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
Exactly. Hey, it's just so lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you
Is Australia
too.
what you thought it would be?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Are you surprised at how obsessed we are with American politics, or that could just be me? But everyone wants to talk about Trump. We had our own women's march in Sydney and in Melbourne.
I heard. That's so cool. No, it's like, everyone everywhere is obsessed with American politics, which just makes me feel so embarrassed for how little Americans know about the politics of other countries. Like people, I mean, Americans have no idea, myself included, because I've done a couple of panels where I had to sort of participate in conversations about Australian politics, and I was like, yes.
You Q&A on Monday night?
Yes.
That's very interesting.
I know. I'm nervous, but I'm excited. But Australia's been great. I've been sort of captivated by it.
Hey, listen, come back soon.
Oh, thank you so much.
It was so gorgeous to meet you.
So good to meet you.
Thank you for all the work you do for women, for body positivity. You're a role model and a superhero.
Oh, thank you.
You really are.
Likewise. Thank you for your work and for having me here. It was really fun.
We love you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
No Filter was brought to you by the Telstra Smart Home app. Telstra brings you the magic of technology with Smart Home, a clever little app that lets you manage your home from everywhere. Thanks for listening to No Filter. You can buy Lindy West's book Shrill either as an audiobook or in the regular form at ibooks at apple.co/Mamamia. And this is also where you can subscribe to all our shows in one place, so you are the first to receive them. Do you know, when I open my little podcast app, either my Mamamia one or my regular one, it's become like I go to it before I go to my email inbox now. Like I go to it before I check websites because it's like I just love watching them appear. It just feels like all these little presents have arrived while I've been sleeping or since I last refreshed. It's just delightful. So download the Mamamia podcast app for more of that. Which is pink, downloaded on someone else's phone. That's not trolling, that's just sharing and caring, and it's a nice thing to do. Because some people don't understand podcasts. Some people will like, I heard about it, but I don't know what to do. So do a girl a favour, do a man a favour, but mostly a girl, your mum, your sister, your best friend, teacher. Maybe don't take your teacher's phone. Your boss. Yeah, just take your boss's phone. Download the Mamamia podcast app. Go on. Dare you. If you want to suggest a guest for No Filter or for any of our podcasts, or just ask me a question or leave a comment, you can call the pod phone on 02 8999 9386. But I don't know why I say that every week, because who would want to speak on a phone? Better still, you can flick me an email at podcasts@mamamia.com.au. And you can also go to our Facebook page. We've got the Mamamia Facebook page. We've got the Mia Freedman Facebook page. We've got the Mamamia Podcast Network Facebook page. I've got an email newsletter at miafreedman.com. I wonder if you're still listening. It's a lot of URLs to remember, isn't it? Today's show was produced by Eliza Ratliff for the Mamamia Women's Network. The executive producer of podcasts is Monique Bowley. She's very tall. And the head of entertainment is Holly Wainwright, who's not tall at all, but she's finished writing a book, which is amazing. Also, another fun fact about Eliza is that she had a cat that she had to take to her parents' farm because she moved house and she wasn't allowed one in her new apartment. And now the cat thinks it's a dog. And as proof of this, she posted a photo on her Instagram of the cat on the back of a ute, which I'm going to repost on my Instagram because I thought it was so funny. I've never seen a cat on the back of a ute before. What was that? What does it ride a lot on the ute, Liz?
Yeah, sometimes. It likes to pretend like it.
And I suppose it's got quite good grip on the back of the ute.